Thanks for having me. This is a fantastic program, and I just want to offer a few words at the beginning and start by thanking Pete Blackshaw for having the vision to pull this together and to hopefully spark ways in which we think we can pull down some of the $30 trillion in sustainable investments that are globally being spent, and how do we get our share of that and participate in what's clearly going to be an emerging and growing economy. I want to thank TAF Law for sponsoring this event this morning. Thank you. Firm I used to work for, great place. Really, I just want to start by talking big picture about how I see the city's involvement and how we've gotten involved. And I think most political involvement tends to come from passion around ideas and convictions. And there is a broad conviction at the city, certainly held by me, that we are in fact in a crisis worldwide about the way we treat our planet and how that planet in turn is going to treat us. And basic moral philosophy and physics is that for every action there's a reaction. And so if you take a bunch of stuff out of the ground and you throw it up into the air, it's going to have reactions. And what we know is that those reactions are increasing the temperatures and making human survival more difficult. And so the people who run for office and who run your city feel deeply that these are real problems and that we have a moral obligation to try to deal with it. Those problems have only gotten more severe in recent years, and they're no longer abstract. We have had, I think, since I've been mayor, 3 100-year windstorms that have caused major damage. And then that leads to cleanups, and Duke and others putting on tax increases on our bills to clean up. And that's a huge financial setback for individuals, and in some terrible cases, people get hurt from this wind. I think we've had 6 or 7 50 and 100-year storms in the last 5 years. That's not supposed to happen. I think we've had more rain in the last 20 years than we did for 80 years previously. Columbia Parkway is a testament to erosion that was inevitable but is happening faster because of the continuing rains. We also obviously have to figure out how to take advantage of these opportunities in a way that's fiscally responsible. Unlike the federal government, we can't print money. We have to be financially responsible with our resources. And so one of the things that I have been trying to do, and I think this is one of the huge opportunities for us, is to really find those ways in which sustainability is financially advantageous. And let me give you a very specific example. We figured out that the city consumed, when I say the city, I mean the city proper, or the city government. So everything from City Hall to our police department to our fire departments to pumping of water to 2 million people in our region. We provide water for virtually everyone in the region. Think about it, we have a big water tank and we need pumps and energy to push that water through the pipes to your house. That takes a lot of energy to do that. Add all that up, and it's about 125 megawatts of energy per year. which it's hard to, if you're not familiar with these terminologies, to grasp what that is. But if you can grasp what it would take to run the city government, including pumping water not just to the city residents, but to 2 million people in our region, then you would have a sense that 125 megawatts is a decent amount of energy, a lot of energy that's consumed. Then we did an analysis within that 125 megawatts is how much are we paying for this energy? And some of the energy that's consistently used, like waterworks, for example, which is always being pumped, and we know very consistently when we need to use it, we're able to negotiate with Duke and others very consistent and low pricing. Then you have a beautiful building like City Hall, which isn't particularly efficient, despite being beautiful, built in the 19th century, and it's very inefficient. So the average cost per kilowatt, which is a smaller segment of a megawatt, for City Hall might be as high as 11 cents kilowatt. But the cost of producing and pumping the water to you, that bill for us is 3 to 4 cents a kilowatt. Huge discrepancy in what we are paying as taxpayers for that energy consumption. Solar, depending on where you build it and how big it is and the pricing you get and everything else, can be around 6 cents a kilowatt hour. Not always, but if you get the right price and the right location and the right land costs, you can get that down to about 6 cents a kilowatt hour. So not only is it better for moral reasons to reduce the carbon footprint of CO2 emissions of coal consumption, but it is literally a savings to the taxpayer to shift not all 125 megawatts from coal to renewable, but the portion that is more expensive than 6 cents a kilowatt hour. And so we have figured out that we have a minimum, and we may have more, but certainly we have 25 megawatts out of 125 that is more expensive than traditional coal energy. So it doesn't matter if you are convinced morally that climate change is a real problem or not. All you have to do is believe in not wasting money to justify creating the supply necessary to take that 25 megawatts off of coal and put it into renewable energy. Which, by the way, with that kind of buying power, creates synergies for private corporations and others to tack on to an effort like that and create more buying power, more economies of scale, and which can further bring down the price of renewable energy. It also creates a diversified portfolio of energy options. So we don't have all of our energy needs in one basket. And I certainly believe in all of the above strategy. It's also the case that despite the simple math that I just described, virtually nobody in government or in the private sector are actually running these calculations, are actually running out these models. And there's a basic economic theory that people will do whatever they need to do to maximize profit and to act economically rationally. But as someone famously said, if the world was rational, men would ride side saddle. And the fact is that all institutions do not act rationally until they are forced to by competition. But it strikes me that right now we are still in a cultural malaise where, while it is true that some of us are having this moral debate about whether it's real or not real and how serious it is and whatnot, and I'm engaging in that debate also, there is a financial opportunity. And the notes I have say that there's a $30 trillion globally that's being invested annually right now in sustainability. If I'm right, that most major institutions, corporate or government, have somewhere in the range of 25 to 30% of their energy consumption in more expensive options than sustainable options, then that 30 trillion is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of opportunity to get ahead. And if we can create markets where we can go and demonstrate in real dollars that big institutions can and will save money in the short term and the long term, and get away from the ideological battles, I think not only will we do something good morally from my personal point of view, but we will also create economic vibrancy, opportunity, and diversify our economy here locally. The one note of caution I have is, and I think this is something we should all get involved in, especially for the bigger companies that are represented here today. One of the reasons why Ohio has the largest number of wind turbine manufacturers in the country today and has an extremely fast-growing solar energy market is that for the last 15 years, the state has required that over a long period of time that the major energy producers diversify their portfolio. And right now there is a law pending in Columbus that would eliminate those standards, which is insane. And given the fact that this is a rising tide economically, that will put Ohio back dramatically and will put us out of the mainstream in the flow of the suppliers, the midstream opportunities. And so I believe Cincinnati is well positioned to be a leader, but it's also the case that if you care, we need you and your institutions to lobby Columbus right now, literally right now, to maintain this long-term commitment to sustainability. I'm running out of time and I don't want to hold up the agenda, but I do want to also mention that we have an incredible corporate commitment to these issues. Kroger's commitment to zero waste within a couple of years. Kroger agreeing to be a founding member of our 2030 district. The 2030 district is a voluntary effort that the city is helping to lead, where major institutions like Fifth Third, Kroger, come together, share ideas, and say, let's collectively figure out how our total carbon footprint over the next 10 years to 2030 can be reduced by 50%. Now, it may be efficient for me to put up a bunch of solar panels, but it's not efficient for me to not run air conditioning. And so I'll take the solar panels, you over here use less air conditioning because it makes sense to your business. So the idea is to create a voluntary ecosystem where we all maximize our financial as well as opportunistic abilities to create more sustainable ecosystem as a group. Let me just finish by saying this. I was recently in China, and they are, by government fiat, top down, investing billions in sustainable energy. And their model in general is top down, and they crack down on free speech and newspapers and religious freedoms, etc. We're in a challenge right now of proving whose model works, an autocratic top-down model or a freedom model that encourages individualism and entrepreneurialism and freedom of conscience, thought, and beliefs. And for a number of reasons, not the least of which is because our federal government, led by our president, who doesn't even believe in climate change, has withdrawn from these issues. The only way America wins is if people like us pick up the mantle and do what we can locally. And the irony of it all is that even if the federal government wanted to lead, the amount of energy they can control directly is minuscule compared to the amount of energy on a per capita basis that we can control through our collective action here at the local level. And I can tell you that mayors all across the country are leading in the same manner of not forcing companies to do X, Y, or Z, but asking. And the great American commentator Alex de Tocqueville in the early 19th century, who wrote about democracy in America, said that the defining exceptionalism of the United States is individual citizenship and individuals feeling accountable and responsible for the future of their community. And so that's the challenge that we have today, to keep that American promise alive, and to do so by getting our piece of the sustainable economy, which is only growing.